Today we are bringing you another peach variety. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here at the very end of May in 2022. If you've been following us along, you know that we have over 170 fruit trees here on this newly establishing farm in the Arizona desert. One of the fruit varieties we enjoy the most is peaches. The three trees you see behind me here are early amber peaches. These trees we put in the ground just over 2 years ago here on the farm. All three we bought from Reed at RSI Growers. As far as I know, he may be the only person here in town, but you guys know just how much we appreciate how well his trees do. And at 2 years old, we have these big, beautiful trees, and more importantly, we have fruit. So with peaches, we've talked about this before. We always net our peach trees, and the reason being we get a tremendous amount of bird activity and, more importantly, damage on these peaches. We can tell you from experience, it doesn't matter how much water you have out. All it does is attract more birds and they will destroy your peaches. So we have this netted with 1/2-inch space netting. That's what's most important when it comes to this, because that is small enough to keep the smallest of the birds out. One other thing you're gonna see here pretty quickly and before we get to harvest is we have what I call a harvesting notch, which we actually put in when we're doing the pruning itself. So we have a nice little cluster of early amber peaches right in here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get this harvesting notch open. It opens just like a button on a shirt, which is gonna allow me to get into the tree here and get my harvesting done. All right, so this will give you an idea of the size and color of an early amber peach. You can see I've got a little smaller one on this side, but nice size one here, which is pretty typical for us. Now, one of the things when it comes to fruit sizes when you're dealing with peaches, it's very important to thin your peaches. We typically do that when the fruit is about the size of a golf ball to ensure we have a good strong fruit set before we actually do the thinning. And then we'll thin so that we have a peach every 6 inches or so on any given branch. When you do that, you'll come up with peaches like this, about the size of a baseball, actually a little larger than a baseball when it comes to actual fruit size. And then your smaller ones are just under the size of a baseball. One additional note before we get to the tasting is when you're picking peaches, you wanna make sure that you're actually cupping the peach itself and pulling straight down and not twisting the peach like this. The reason being is you'll have a branch that typically runs across the peach here. As the peach swells, it basically goes around the branch, and you don't want to twist, because if you do, what'll happen is that branch will dig into the flesh. You can see this one here, it was so deep, even just pulling it straight down, it still dug into the flesh right here. One of the great parts about an early amber peach is they are freestone. So that means the pit will come separate from the flesh itself. So I'll be able to cut this in half, twist it, and it should pop out into two perfectly sized halves. So you can see just how beautiful these look. So down here near the blossom end is where it's the most ripe. You can see it's starting to turn this reddish color. So I know that these are just about perfectly ripened. And then obviously it gets a little less ripe as you get towards the stem end. You can see how beautiful and how juicy that is. Hopefully here in the early morning sun, we'll get a shot of just how much juice there is in this. And then of course, as I try it, that'll be a dead giveaway. But I know that I've got this about perfectly in half, and my beautiful wife behind the camera, well, you guys know how this rolls. She gets half. All right, so now let's go ahead and try one of these early amber peaches and see just what we have going on. Oh my goodness. I'm not sure if you can tell, but this is really, really good. Oh my. Okay, so you can see I've got about a quarter of that peach left. Lori had to finish her half just so that she could actually work the camera. That's how much juice pours out of these things. Very, very juicy, wonderful tasting peach. Obviously the Freestone is really nice because if you're gonna be sharing these or cutting them up for a dish, they're gonna cut very easily for you and very evenly. In addition, these will ripen up a bit on the counter, so this peach was about perfectly ripe. I mean, it doesn't really get better than that. And these will deteriorate pretty rapidly on the counter. So if you're gonna be storing these long term, what we like to do is actually freeze these. So we'll cut them up into chunks. We'll put them in the freezer quickly for about an hour or two so they harden completely, and then put them into a bag so they actually stay separate. We love having these in our smoothie. The taste is incredible. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reference back to our FlordaPrince peaches, which I can tell you are still our favorite peach. So this one is a very, very close second. I would say in this case, it's probably just as sweet. The only thing that I get from this peach as opposed to the FlordaPrince is I think the skin is just a little thicker. And so there's just a tiny, tiny bit of bitterness, very, very slight when you're eating the skin in addition to the peach itself. Other than that, a fantastic Freestone peach, extremely sweet, here heading into June in the middle of the desert in Arizona. Very good. So early amber peaches. I think if you guys are going to narrow your peach choices down here in Arizona, if you want a Freestone peach, an early amber is a fantastic option for you. Wonderfully sweet peach, just a very, very slight hint of bitterness with the skin on there. It's slightly larger than a FlordaPrince peach in our experience, and a great option. Now, we still prefer our FlordaPrince peaches even over this one. It's really hard to beat the thin skin and wonderful sweetness of a FlordaPrince, but definitely a very close second and a Freestone option. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. We cover a lot of things here on the channel as we're establishing this new desert farm here in the Sonoran Desert. Would love to have you as a subscriber. Any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section down below. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description. That is a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with the link down below, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.